Okay, I guess I'm live. Fantastic. All right. Well, welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Jose Pazos. The first time we're doing this live from this account. We really have barely used it, but we're going to start doing videos on management after the Surfside tragedy. What happened in Surfside, the Champlain Towers collapse, is going to change management in condominium associations in Florida for years and years to come. There's not one condominium that's not going to be affected by it. And although it was a sad tragedy, there are many things that we have already learned from it, and we're going to continue to learn. And there are some regulatory changes that are coming down very soon. Definitely next session, if not a special session that might be called, in order to have regulatory changes for condos next year. The first one, we're going to go over the three that we think are the most popular right now, and we're going to go over our opinion on what's going on, because we also had a partial roof collapse in Hialeah just last week, 3 weeks from the tower collapse. So that's just not natural. There's clearly something going on. What is it? Let's find out. So let's give our opinion. First of all, we've given 3 weeks, and we've let building engineers, PEs, and structural engineers, GCs, and all kinds of professionals from the industry give their opinion. And I'll preface this by saying we own a management firm here in Miami, Florida called PR Management Solutions. My business partner is Julio Robina, former state representative who was the one who authored the law in 2007 about the buildings having to be inspected every 5 years in the state of Florida. Unfortunately, in 2010, when he was term limited and he left the House of Representatives, the Florida House, that law was taken down. I'm sure you guys have seen it in the news. We've gotten a lot of phone calls lately from the news agencies wanting to speak to him about that, and also from legislators who are currently in office wanting suggestions on what to do. Now, we've been practicing community association management for over 15 years here in Miami, Florida, and in Broward. So we are in a unique position to give our opinion to these legislators who want to take action. So without further ado, what are the three possible regulatory changes that are going to come for next year? Number one, Condo Fraud Task Force. The Condo Fraud Task Force was suggested this year in the Florida legislature, but it was sponsored in the Senate, but it lost because of lack of interest just prior to the session closing. So it died. Now it's back. It's back with a vengeance. After the tower collapsed, everyone called, and the old sponsors and now new sponsors that are ready to go with the Condo Fraud Task Force. What is it? Well, I'll tell you what it is. Condo Fraud Task Force is going to take from a condo trust fund that exists in the state of Florida. So if you didn't know, and you own a condo in the state of Florida, every year you pay $4.50, whether you like it or not, to the state of Florida, and they put that money in a trust fund. And every year they raise $11.5 million. Now that money is supposed to be used for education and enforcement for the division of condominium, time homes, and mobile homes, or timeshares and mobile homes. Rarely is that money used for education or enforcement or anything else. What usually happens is that it's swept into the general fund to cover the budget. And that, I've been saying for decades, that's a fraud. That's a backdoor tax. If you're not going to use the money for what's intended, the $11.5 million a year, and I'm talking to the Florida legislature, Governor DeSantis, if you're not going to use the $11.5 million in the condo trust fund every year, and you're just going to sweep it into the general fund, then you're charging an illegal tax to those Floridians. Because why are they paying for extra services of the general fund if that money is supposed to be a trust fund money for only the enforcement and the education for the condo owners and the condo field and division, where there is none? We don't have a criminal investigative unit. Everything goes to economic crimes. Economic crimes doesn't have sufficient money to investigate condo fraud allegations. They're busy doing mortgage fraud stuff. So it falls through the cracks. Now, why is it so important? Is there really that much condo fraud that we need a task force? Yes, there's enough. There's enough that we have a there is a what is the right word? A cultural phenomenon in Miami, Florida, in South Florida, where people don't want to pay reserves. And it's not just because they don't want to pay it out of their pocket because they're cheap. It's because they have a legitimate fear that by the time the 20 years come to replace the roof, that reserve money is gone. That's happened. It's happened in a few cases, but it's enough for the mass to not want to do it at all. And over the years, what's been happening is they've been going from fully funded to just partially funded. Let me explain that. The reserves should be fully funded, right? But that costs a lot of money. And what is a reserve? The reserve calculation, the state of Florida requires a reserve calculation every year for your roof replacement, your building painting, and concrete restoration. Building painting really doesn't call it what it is. It's concrete restoration and your road resurfacing. Those three things, you should have a market value of replacement, the full cost, the life expectancy left on those three items, and the amount of money you need to fund to get to that amount. If you don't have those things, then you don't have a reserve calculation. If you lower the amounts to only fund 10% of that amount that you're putting out there, then when it comes time to replace the item, the roof, the concrete restoration, or the parking lot, you're only going to have 10% if you were disciplined. You still got to go out and find the remaining 90%, and that's a problem. That's where usually people have to go to bank loans, or they got to go to special assessments to cover the job. That's exactly what happened at Champlain Towers. They only had about $300,000 in their reserve. The rest was all, specially assessed $17 million project that they were doing. So that's called deferred maintenance. And that happens. That's very common in Miami and Broward counties, unfortunately. So because of that phenomenon of people not wanting to put money into the reserve accounts because they feel it's going to be gone in the time that they need it, they either put in a little bit or they don't put anything at all. So for that reason, we need the Condo Fraud Task Force. The number two change that's going to happen is at a county level, we've already know one county commissioner is going to propose reducing the building certification timeline from 40 years to 30 years with a 25-year trigger, which is reasonable. That means that 25 years or 5 years before your certification, you would have to contact the county municipality and let them know, hey, we've hired engineer so-and-so to do the pre-inspection. We'll do the scope of work. As you know, anyone in the field or anyone who owns a condo unit know that this is a long process. You have to get a scope of work. You got to prepare a formal bid. You got to analyze those bids, vet those vendors, then start searching for the financing, start doing board meetings, letting the owners know what's going on, how much time they have to get money together, and then start commencing the project. So this is a very slow moving ship, and it takes time for those things to get done. An association is nothing more than a small municipality. It runs very similarly. It's just very, very tight, very, very, very small. The third change is also going to be at the state level, and that goes back to reserves. Right now, reserve studies are not mandated in the state of Florida, believe it or not. We have one of the largest states with condos in it. We're not required to have reserve studies. The state of California, not that California is any better, but California at least requires reserve studies, I think is every 5 years. That's what I think is going to happen in the state of Florida. At a state level, they're going to require reserve studies every 5 years. And we already went through what a reserve study is, just a calculation. What we're recommending is that when you do your reserve studies, put an on-site structural component, on-site PE, to give you a structural certification of the building. If there's something that is deficient, if you see spalling, if there's spalling on the building, which is those cracks that you see. Champlain Towers had, I'm sure you see in the before videos and the before pictures, you'll see a lot of cracks on the balconies or cracks on the windows or on the wall. Those cracks are just spalling, which is rebar that's been expanded from the moisture. It expands, it cracks the concrete, and sometimes the concrete falls off. That's usually treated with elastomeric compound, but you got to chip away first and see how deep the problem goes. And that's the problem with bidding these things out. You can get a bid for 200 grand and it can easily raise all the way up to 350, 400,000, depending on how deep they saw the problem. But if you're getting a reputable company, they pretty much know what to expect and they know what they're doing. The problem comes when you don't vet the vendors or you just have someone do building painting. I've seen that a lot. Building painting and concrete restoration are two totally different things. In a condo, when you paint, you got to do the concrete restoration, waterproof the building, and then paint. And there's a huge cost difference there than your average Joe paint guy that's going to come and do the building for you with a really cheap quote. And nobody can figure out why this guy does it so cheap and this guy does it so expensive. So those are the three items. Now, what is our opinion? What is going to happen? What should you do? We're doing this not only for our clients, but this is what I'm suggesting to anyone who owns a condo, definitely anyone on the board of directors, and any management professionals that may be watching. What I'm recommending to everyone is that everyone should commission a reserve study right now. Everyone should commission a reserve study, even if it's not required. Why? Because you're going to need it. You're going to need it. And it's more bang for your buck for you to go and ask for the reserve study now and put an on-site structural engineer component or a PE component to it, where they're going to give you a health check of the structural components of the building, see if there's any spalling, and a scope of work with a remedy if any was required. It's good for you to do that in a package together now versus doing it separately. It's tempting to just do one and not the other. You need both. You need the reserve calculations in order to accurately predict what you're going to need for capital improvements and to start correcting the issues that clearly everyone has. Now, I wanted to go back to why people partially reserve a minute. So partial reserves. Sometimes people partially reserve because they only want to do the FHA requirement. The FHA requirement is 10%. So when it's budget meeting time now at associations, budgets start next month. If you want to budget correctly, you want to do a reserve study. If the board doesn't allow you to do a reserve study, and let's say you're not on the board, or you're a manager, or you're a professional, or you own a unit there and you want them, ask the board to commission a reserve study. Because sometimes the state of Florida, or not all, unfortunately not sometimes, all the time, a credential is not required to do a reserve study. So they leave it to board members to come up with life expectancies and actual current costs. They leave it to managers. They leave it to any layperson to do so. I feel, and I've been practicing for 15 years, I'm not qualified to do that sort of work. I'm not qualified to jump on a roof and tell you there's 5 years left on this thing. Those should be the professionals to go out there and give you that information. And you should want someone who's not going to participate in the bidding process. So you don't just want to call a roofing contractor, hey, go get me a bid. That's not going to be an accurate number. You want a reserve study with an engineer who's a third-party impartial professional who's going to go out and give you the actual cost of the replacement for those items. Just my 2 cents. Again, we will be putting out more videos. I went live because, quite frankly, it is easier to put the video online live than it is to record it and then upload it. I've been trying to do it since yesterday, and I've had so many issues with trying to upload the video. But anyways, hopefully this works. Hopefully this video gets out there. If you're looking for management in South Florida for your condominium or HOA, we are PR Management Solutions. We've been managing for over 15 years here in South Florida. We'd love to give you a quote. You can contact us. Our website will be in the comment section below, but it's www.prmiami.com. Again, I am Jose Pazos. I want you to have a blessed day. May God bless you guys always.